I think the 25th anniversary of the DDA presents a really powerful opportunity to resurface issues of equality for disabled people on a national agenda. I think that as human beings, we often sadly get quite hung up around time markers of significance, and it's a shame that it takes something like a 25th anniversary to really resurface these issues that are actually lived by disabled people every single day of their lives. Outside of the workplace, I think that the barriers which disabled people face tend to be the same ones that most people face, but they're magnified a thousandfold by virtue of disability. So if we take, for example, something like public transport, a disabled person will have significantly reduced options compared to non-disabled people. The same goes for housing, the same goes for a wide range of factors outside of work. I think it's hugely important to support disabled people to assume positions of leadership. I think that change starts from both the top and the bottom, and unless you have people with the lived experience of the issues that disabled people face every day making those decisions at the top, it's never really going to create the kind of sea change that we want to see within our lifetimes at least. I think that there's a real duality around the culture around disability in the UK. I think that for certainly within most of my adult life now, there's been this dual narrative of either you're a superhuman Paralympian or you're a scrounger living off the state. I think that it's a impression of disability that is generally, and I say this kindly, but generally born of ignorance. I think that when you work with, when you know, when you live with disabled people, you realise that we are everyday people like everyone else. But I think that there have been wildly unhelpful portrayals of disability in the media. We have a tendency to exaggerate characteristics, and that's true of every story and every sort of marginalised group. But I think that disabled people have really suffered from this dual portrayal, and actually there's less of a recognition that there is a middle ground, that disabled people are just like everybody else. The vast majority of disabled people that you put their question to, they will struggle to pick just one incident. I think I would, rather than single out one incident, just sort of highlight the structural issues around public transport in the UK. I mean, let's be realistic, we are working on very old infrastructure here. There are great strides being made to modernise that infrastructure, but it takes time, and in the time that it's taking to modernise this infrastructure and to make it truly fit for purpose for the 21st century and to make it accessible for everybody, disabled people are the demographic that loses out the most in that lost time. So I went to university, and then I had to drop out of university because at the time my mobility was deteriorating and I was struggling to get from home into lectures, and I was unaware of any of the support that's available to help disabled students with these additional complications. So I simply stopped going because I couldn't get there anymore. So I spent a fair bit of time sat on my sofa watching too much daytime TV. And then I thought I'd better do something with my life, so I decided to volunteer for a cause that was close to my heart, and I ended up getting a job at the place that I was volunteering, and it was really through the power of volunteering that I managed to break into the world of work. And I think that it's a really powerful way for disabled people to enter the workplace, but at the same time I would caveat that by saying that in my professional career I have come across far too many disabled people who are expected to work for free, and I'm sure that's true of many graduates across the piece. And I think that there needs to be a real step change in how we perceive the value of what graduates or non-graduates or people just starting out in their careers can bring to organisations, and that we should value that financially as well as socially. greater awareness of some of the support that's out there for disabled people to help them access the world of work and to mitigate some of the barriers that we encounter by virtue of our impairment. There are a fantastic range of support schemes out there that are available, but I think that there's a real lack of understanding within the disabled community about what they are, how they access them, and how they work. I would say that it won't always be easy. I hate to start with negativity off the bat, but let's be realistic. Let's phrase that as realism rather than negativity. I don't think it will always be easy, but that is true for all people starting out their careers. I think that perseverance, being stubborn, being prepared to self-advocate, being equipped to self-advocate. I would say arm yourself with as much information that you can about the support that is available for you, about the barriers that you will face, and about the people who have been through the career ringer before and how they've managed to overcome those barriers. Can I be greedy and pick two here?
Sure.
The two that I would pick would revolve around housing and transportation. And if you had to hold a gun to my head and say choose one, I would say housing. I think that having a safe, a stable, a secure place to live is the bedrock of everything else that we go on to do in life, and that's true of everybody, not just disabled people. But for disabled people, the barriers to accessing that safe, secure, stable housing are multiplied. I think that there is an awful lot more that we can do to support disabled people into better accommodation. And I think that something like the 25th anniversary of the DDA provides us with a really good opportunity to air this issue with policymakers.
Great.